I just got to realizing that today is Tuesday. So, I normally do a technical thing on Tuesday, or I had at least in the past, but, I've been very busy. The writing of the audiobook is underway, so there's an update on that. That should be released pretty soon. At least the first five or so chapters, or parts rather, should be released by then. So also, a quick update on the cat, on Porky. I got him trying to eat some of the I'm trying to get him to eat dry food again. So I mixed in a little bit of the wet food with the dry food, see if that can like sort of wean him off the wet food, get him back into eating dry food. So there's that. And then I was going to do this because with all the stuff that's going on around the world, I wanted to talk about a couple different things. The whole Sri Lanka thing, which gives me a laugh because of a few different things that I'll go into, but also I wanted to talk about the Chi-Com buildup in Europe because that is very relevant with everything else that is occurring. So again, we know some of the Belt and Road projects had actually extended to the nation there that's on the coast of what the former Yugoslavia was. I believe that's Montenegro. They had built a highway there, and Montenegro is a very poor nation, and they couldn't really afford the project, so of course, they're beholden to the Red Chinese. They're beholden to the CCP. So you can assume as like a highly educated guess that the port facilities in Montenegro are going to be used for the importation of Chi-Com heavy units because we also already know, which is an established fact, that basically, there was an entire convoy, an air convoy of Chi-Com cargo planes that had landed in Serbia to offload troops and weapons and logistics. Now, you can assume that anything that's air delivered obviously is going to be of a lighter category as far as like units go, but still, light units, they can do damage. They can do damage. I would say that that is likely merely an advanced party, as like I was an advanced party for our unit when I went to Iraq. I went to the Middle East. I went to Al Shuaiba port to offload vehicles from the ship. Like that was my job as advanced party for 3rd ACR. So I went and helped offload vehicles off a ship. There were a bunch of us that went there first, and that was what we did for about a few months. Before we actually, went to Camp Beering to get ready to go into Iraq. Camp Beering is also in Kuwait, but that's where your units basically do their final checks on equipment, gear. You test out we tested our howitzers there, to make sure that they're in proper working order before they were loaded onto trucks and driven into Iraq while we were loaded onto planes and flown into Iraq. So what am I getting at? I'm saying that China is obviously doing the same types of things in the Balkans right now, that we did for our Iraq deployment. Okay, it's obvious. I mean, it's not like it's no like big huge secret. I mean, come on now. I mean, you got all of these different cargo planes that have flown trip after trip to ferry in troops, logistics, their supplies, and lighter weapons. Okay. So, we could be talking airborne units, of course, obviously, or we could be talking just light infantry and maybe some air defense units because allegedly, there were some air defense weapons aboard those planes. Well, we know China has very potent air defense systems, much like Russia. China has they have many layers of air defense. They have short, medium, and long-range air defense systems that are all quite potent. But they have their HQ-9B and their HQ-9A. The A isn't as good as the B. The A is still considered, long range or moderate range, but the HQ-9B has a 300 kilometer range, and the HQ-9A has a 125 kilometer range. So the HQ-9B is just 100 kilometers shy of what the S400 can do. I mean, they both have the same like tracking capabilities. More or less, they both have the same exact tracking capabilities, same types of same quality of like their computers, radars, everything that are integrated. But the missiles themselves are where there's a difference. Now, even though the Chinese are 100 kilometers short of what the S400 can do, it's still a very highly potent air defense system. Now, the FK-2000. Now, this is their anti-satellite, anti-ballistic missile, and anti-stealth bomber air defense system that the Chinese have. The FK-2000 was built from the HQ-9B system, from that platform. It's very, very high altitude, very long range. It's even longer range than the HQ-9B. And it's like the Chinese equivalent of like the Russian S-500. So the HQ-9B is like the Chinese version of like a S-400. Not version, it's a totally different thing, but it's like their equivalent to what the Russians depend on the S-400 for. That's for China, the HQ-9B. Now the FK-2000 is like China's equivalent of what the Russians depend on their S-500 for anti-satellite, anti-ballistic missile, and high-flying stealth bombers. That's what they primarily use that for. Now, it's been alleged that China offloaded these FK-2000s as well as they offloaded some HQ-9Bs. So they have some long-range air defense in Serbia, allegedly. And I believe it. I believe it. Because we know that China and Russia are the thickest of allies. They are working on their own version of a Eurasian integration, and that's very real. And that has as much to do with the Belt and Road, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is, a primary mover of the whole Belt and Road project, along with the Chinese Commerce Ministry. And you have, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is a group of nations who are involved in the Belt and Road projects, like the actual lanes, the trading lanes of the Belt and Road. So the overland lanes mostly, and then you have the other signatories which have signed up for the loan projects, the loan packages, and the modernization projects where they're modernizing the infrastructure, which goes into Sri Lanka and their default, which I'll get to. But right now I'm talking about Serbia, and I'm talking about that they're beholden to the Chicoms. Okay, they are now. You see Xi Jinping billboards all over Serbia. That the one I posted for the thumbnail is even different than the one I had showed you before. The one I showed you before was in a city. These are all over Serbia. I went and looked. These are all over Serbia. I told you, and I've told you, wherever the Chinese troops go, so does their god, Xi Jinping. So you can see it's written in Serbian and it's written in Mandarin. So the Chinese troops stationed there and the Serbs can know that Xi Jinping is watching over them, which is really eerie and really creepy. It's creepy as hell, man. That is creepy as hell. So the Red Dragon is in Serbia, and they're readying their troops for war. War against whom? War against the Western European nations, of course. There's a lot of talk about, things going on with Russia, obviously, right now. I mean, the whole Ukraine thing's still in play. But, now that you have the Chicoms building up in the Balkans, they're within striking distance of Greece, where, the Americans have been trying to offload a lot of their stuff because Greece is a NATO member. Now that they're trying to pivot away from Turkey to pivot towards Greece and build up in Greece, well, now China's within direct striking distance of Greece. They're within striking distance of Italy across the Adriatic there. You have them within striking distance of Austria, Germany. I mean, Germany's not that far away from Serbia on a map. I mean, it's just a matter of several hundred miles away. I mean, so all the U.S. forces that are stationed in Germany, Italy, and Greece are all within striking distance of the Chicoms sitting right there in Serbia. Okay. So now that you're starting to get the vision that if you can imagine a map and you see where Serbia is, it's very, very well strategically placed. So all right, you have that. Then you have Belarus, a CSTO member state, which is the former, a lot of the former Soviet republics. Now, obviously, some have left, like the Baltics, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. They've left the CSTO to join NATO. Then you had Ukraine, not really part of it because they wanted to become a NATO partner. They were looking to membership, but now they're on the ropes. They're about to be destroyed by Russia. So you have all these things in flux. They're in flux. They're meaning they're in the air. They're up in the air. It's like a toss up. They're in flux. Things are moving. You got a lot of moving pieces. Things have not settled yet. The dust hasn't settled yet, and it's not really going to. Things are going to continue to change and morph and metamorphosize. Things are going to continually change. Nothing really is going to settle insofar as the overall prognosis of what the world is facing. I mean, we're facing a disaster of epic proportions, especially for the West. Now, again, I've told you all how weak the Western European NATO members are. It would be nothing for Russia to defeat them all by themselves. Do you understand the sorry state of the logistics and the amount of ammo, the quantities of ammo that are available to the Western European NATO members? They barely meet the quota of their 2% of GDP for defense spending. I mean, we're talking like puny defense budgets. And if you adjust it to purchasing power parity, it's awful. It's awful. It is awful. Meaning what you can get for your euro versus like what you can get for, another currency. That's in that specific nation. Now like say that purchasing power parity in Germany would be pretty expensive. I mean, it would be pretty bad. You wouldn't be able to get as much for your euro in Germany as you can get for your ruble in Russia. That's purchasing power parity. Your Russian ruble within Russian borders goes further than the euro within German borders. Okay, do you understand what I'm saying? So these defense budgets in reality are very horrible. They're very horrible because Western weapons are overly complicated. They're overly expensive. They're not as well streamlined as, say, Chinese or Russian weapons are. So, you got issues with the overcomplication. You've got issues with the logistical systems. All of Western Europe is within striking range of all types of Russian missiles. They're within striking distance of Russian ships. I mean, there's nowhere in Western Europe that would be safe from Russian missiles. So what does that mean? That means in an all-out war with Russia, between NATO and Russia, it means that our bases, it means American bases and installations that are throughout Western Europe. It means that even the European member nations of NATO, their bases too, they're all within missile striking distance of Russia, not just of their ships, but also of their land-based systems as well. They're all within striking distance. Now, just the medium and moderate and those ranges of missiles, those can hit much of Europe from Kaliningrad, and Russia has a lot of missile forces in Kaliningrad right now. Then you got the Russian ship-based and sub-based missiles. They can hit all of the NATO bases. It's not like it's a hard thing for them to do. I mean, look, there's nowhere in Ukraine that was safe from Russian missile strikes, from cruise missiles, from their short-range ballistic missiles, and then, of course, you had their artillery in the east hitting all the different parts of the eastern targets that they had set out to destroy. So artillery is obviously a much closer in type of thing. Most artillery, I mean, even when you're using like rocket assisted projectiles, which, they're shells that are rocket assisted shells that you launch from a howitzer, or if you're using rocket artillery itself, typically speaking, not always, but typically speaking, you get ranges that are under about 200 kilometers tops for rockets, and then you get like and I'm saying roughly speaking, because there's rocket systems like that the Chinese have that have they're immensely long range, like their 370 millimeter rockets. Those can go a few hundred kilometers. They have the Russians, they have long range rocket artillery too, but the shorter range rocket artillery is generally like within like 50 kilometers range, generally. I'm talking about like your grad rockets and things like that. 50 kilometers is it's just over like, what, 25 miles or something like that, right around there. So, they have all ranges of artillery. They have very long ranges of ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles, of course, can go quite a ways, like the Calibers launched from ships. So there's nowhere in Western Europe that is safe from Russian missiles, or Chinese for that matter. When you have the Chinese moving in, any type of artillery, like their longer range rocket artillery, or if you have them moving in their missiles, and remember, China has the biggest land-based missile forces on the planet. I already showed you all in that video. So you have all these different things coalescing here. You have. It's obvious that the Chinese and Russian coalition, they're building a coalition to defeat the West, right under the noses of the West. That's what people don't understand. All of this has happened under everybody's noses, okay? I'm talking about the Trojans that have built up inside our country, inside Australia, inside New Zealand, no doubt inside Taiwan. I mean, man, they're all over the West, in Western Europe too. When I was a foreign exchange student and I went to Germany, there's a lot of foreign businesses in Germany. I noticed when I was there. Of course, you have like Chinese food. Guess what? Chinese food tastes the same all around the world. When I went to Germany, the Chinese in Germany, I bought some. It tastes just like the Chinese food in America. It's literally like no different. It's no different. But Western Europe is a multicultural society now. What does that mean? That means that you easily can have all types of foreign forces hiding out in Europe every bit as they've done here, okay? You don't think that the Chi-Coms don't have bases inside of Germany or Italy or France or Britain? Of course they do. Of course they do. It might not be to the extent that they've put them here, but, I have no doubt that they have units within Western Europe. Typically, I would say within striking distance of many of those installations. Like you saw in my documentary series how, they went for the installations, how they just bum rushed them. I mean, they just smashed their way in and they took it over within less than an hour in most cases. They can do that. They can do that. They've trained to do that. It's not hard. I mean, it's not like these are like monolithic fortifications. These are just places with fences around them. I mean, my God. I mean, you can like ram through it with like, armor personnel carriers charging at the fences and things. It's not like it's hard for them to get in there. It's not a big secret, I mean, they can utterly just take the places over in just a matter of hours. It's not hard. Fourth generation warfare, also known as hybrid warfare, aka hybrid warfare, it'll be seen around the whole West. It'll be seen around the entire collective West. It'll be done everywhere when World War III occurs. The Ukraine's nothing. Ukraine is really nothing. It's a limited incursion and it's an appetizer. Same for what I depicted for an internal conflict here. That would only be an appetizer to the Sino-Russian invasion, which will come in very hard, very fast, very powerful. And there won't be really any sort of meaningful resistance against it. And I'm talking about even into the occupation, because if you just had an internal conflict and your people just butchered each other, all your best people are gone. I mean, what can really be done in that case? You know, so I'm warning against these things because I see these threats on the horizon. They're very real threats. You're watching it develop by the day, all day, every day. You're seeing it develop. Oh yeah, I mean there's spin. There's a lot of spin going on, and spin stories and narratives, and but you got to learn to use certain templates to be able to see what in certain stories is true and what is not. What is not true. You have to use good common sense. You have to use analytical skills. You have to know, you have to have base information. And by base information, I mean information that you use as a template, like raw facts, established information, numbers, figures, all that type of stuff that you can use to either prove or disprove anything that's like a current events type of narrative or story or whatever. I mean, there's all sorts of ways you can discern and use good common sense to figure things out. I try to offer that on this channel. That's what this channel has been. It's been an amateur research analytical channel, and you can also look at me as a type of record keeper. I'm a record keeper. By record keeping, I mean not just numbers and facts and figures and all that stuff, but I keep record of the times. I compare things. I connect dots. I'm a record keeper. I mean that's really all I am. I'm just a record keeper. I'm keeping records of everything that I encounter that I feel is worthy of keeping records of, keeping tabs of. And I try to do that for the betterment of all. Now, I'm not going to be on here, forever, obviously, but I'm doing my part. I'm doing what I can do to help people. I don't get nothing for it. I don't ask for anything for this. I'm doing this of my own accord. It's my kingdom work, and my kingdom work I feel is coming to an end soon, because I feel like God has called me to do my last project. That's what I feel like, okay? I just feel that in my soul. Like God's called me to do my last project, my audiobook, and do these intermittent, Friday things between it, and maybe a couple extra here and there. But, but eventually, once that project is done, then, I'm done. I basically put every single solitary thing out as a form of, like a template for what's coming. If you ever would want to, learn about this stuff in earnest, you'll have a mountain of resources. I mean, you already do on this channel. People just aren't using them. They're not going and taking the time to watch those. I look at the views on them, and it's still like, man, people just don't know that these things are here. I'm trying to make it known every single live that I have things for people to look at. If you really want to see what these things look like, what they move like, what they would be like, you could go watch those documentaries. I have them there. They're there. You could read the stories. People, for whatever reason, just don't want to. Then that's not my fault. I did my part. I put out my end of things. I did my work. Okay, it's up to other people to go and pursue it and look at it. If people are lazy and they don't want to do it, then hey, my blood, their blood. I always say that. I don't know why. It's okay. Anyway, their blood is not on my hands. Again, I have a head injury, so sometimes I mince my words. Forgive me for that. But I do my best. I do my best with what I have. And I do my best research. I try to integrate my experience with research, with deep research, to be able to then, in my mind, concoct these scenarios wherein I combine my experience, my personal experience, with research and analytical abilities. Okay, that's what I do. That's how I come up with those things. And when I research those doctrines of our enemies, when you go and watch those invasion documentaries, what you are literally witnessing is the invasion through their doctrines. Okay, like that's the whole idea behind it. It's like it's taking their doctrines and plugging in the real units. And, on both sides, including even armed civilians that would be reactionary, of course, and partisans and more, okay, I plug all that in. I plug it all into within the scope of their doctrines, and then I conduct it through the scale which it would occur. It would have to occur. It would have to be the biggest invasion in all of human history because this nation is vast. It's very populated, very well armed. It would have to be at least a 10 to 12 plus million man invasion. So that there's the scale. The scope of it, the scope and scale of it would be gargantuan. Okay, it would be gargantuan. So when you watch those, what you're watching is a display. You're watching a display of hybrid war doctrines in action. In action, you're watching the real units plugged into them, and they are real units. They're real units plugged into them. Like you have your group armies, you have your like PAP, first and second mobile contingents, and all the different like core strength units and divisions and brigades that are under all that. That's what I'm saying. You're watching all of that plugged in to their doctrines, plugged into a real place, meaning the USA. It's a real place, and it's the doctrines literally playing out as they would occur with foreign units emerging from CCP regime properties in their full strength of different units, with their equipment, with their logistics, everything, moving against their objectives. That's what it is. That's what it's made to convey. That's the entire point of it. So, I showed different places where I would show different examples of different types of units plugged into the hybrid war doctrines, conducting those doctrines in action. And that's what the stories are there to convey as well. They go with the documentaries, the invasion documentaries. Now, the internal conflict thing's an entirely different thing altogether. That's a different timeline. That timeline, see, in the invasion timeline I made, the hypothetical timeline, it's all hypothetical, okay? I made a timeline for the invasion to where we didn't have it's like a best case scenario for us, where we didn't have any sort of internal conflict, where it's merely we just had some bad economic problems like we have now, and then the invasion is foisted upon us. Now, in the internal conflict timeline, we're having obviously an internal conflict, and then at the very end of that, it says that then we get invaded, meaning that all the stuff I showed in the invasion stuff in that timeline happens in the other timeline. But I don't have to show all that stuff again because you already know what it looks like, because I've already showed it in the other timeline. So that's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm conveying with all these things, these hypotheticals. They're made combining experience, research, knowledge, different references, be they current or historical, everything. It's a little bit of everything woven together into storytelling for a hypothetical scenario. It's storytelling, it's script writing for like a scenario script for the scenario to play out, because again, it's hypothetical, to convey what those doctrines look like on a real place with real units, with real everything plugged into it. That's showcasing what those doctrines are. So you can see it on a map and in a story, what it moves like, what it's like. Okay? So now we go back to Serbia. So obviously, Western Europe is in jeopardy. They're in jeopardy. So you got the Chi-Coms moving in strength, to the point to where they're already putting propaganda up all around Serbia, which is crazy. It's kind of creepy. It's really creepy. I mean, this isn't even their country. Like, they're putting up propaganda in Serbian and Chinese so that the Serbs can read it and see that Comrade G is there, looking over them. And that's eerie. That is eerie. I mean, they're not even Chinese people. And the Chinese dictator is there. He's there. His propaganda's there. His graven images are there. And the Serbs see it every day on their commutes. You saw how it's in the middle of a street there, so everyone driving by sees it. And then I showed the other one before in my community post where it's in a big city. It's in Belgrade. It's like sitting there like in front of a bunch of buildings, a bunch of urban buildings. These things are all over Serbia now. Well, why is that? Because there's Chinese troops in Serbia. Okay, it's obvious. It's obvious. You're not just gonna go to sleep one night in Serbia, and then you wake up the next day and all these Xi Jinping billboards are all over the freaking place, and and for no reason. For no reason. There's a reason for it, okay? You don't plaster propaganda of your regime and your dictator all over another country unless there's a reason for it, okay? And the reason is that there's Chi-Com troops all over Serbia now. They're building up. They're building up to take over NATO, okay? them and Russia both. They're going to the Sino-Russian coalition is going to destroy Western Europe. It's going to destroy the USA. It's going to invade the United States. And they hate my channel. Every time I put out videos now, I'm losing 10 to 20 people. No, I'm not getting rid of nobody. I had somebody ask me that in another chat. I'm not getting rid of anybody. I only ever blocked like 4 people. And those were 4 people that I asked repeatedly not to do certain things, and they did it anyway. Those are the people I block. I'm not just willy-nilly just blocking people for no reason. I want to establish that right now. I'm not getting rid of nobody. YouTube is getting rid of you all because YouTube hates these videos. Why do they hate it so much? Why do they hate it so much? Well, that's a rhetorical question. I think everybody knows the answer. I think everybody knows the answer. Who am I? Who am I? I'm just some guy. I live in a house with like 3 cats. I'm like a 2-time divorced man. I live in a house with 3 cats. I'm a combat veteran who's been injured in Iraq. Who am I? I ain't nobody. I don't get no money for this. I don't even ask for shit for this. I just do this because I feel like it's the right thing to do. It's like I feel like God instilled it upon me to do this. So I'm doing this. No one else is doing this type of thing. I don't see nobody else, combining experience and research and analytical abilities to create hypothetical anything. And that's just the reality I see. I don't, I would like to find another person doing that because I'd like to touch bases with them and like compare notes, but I don't see anybody else doing it. So, I guess, it's just me, and YouTube doesn't like that. They hate it. They're shaving subs. So if you're booted from my channel, I didn't do it to you. YouTube did it to you. The only reason I would ever get rid of anybody is if they were picking fights with other subs or making it a drama thing on my channel, which I told everybody I won't tolerate, or if they're doing something against me or somebody I love, like Jennifer, like that whole bullshit, that was all a bunch of bullshit. She didn't do nothing wrong to me. She didn't deserve none of that. That happened. So, if people are doing things like that, then yeah, I'm going to boot you out, and you're never coming back. But, cause you effed up with me then. But, if you didn't do none of those things, then it's not me getting rid of you. It's YouTube getting rid of you. Okay. That's how it works. YouTube, they've shaved off over 100 people from this channel. And I don't think most of them that got booted even realized it. And they've been doing it steadily over the course of like the last several videos I've made. I've noticed, it's a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there, So, it's obvious to me that, I can't compete. I cannot compete like that. I can't compete getting my work out, my messages out. I can't compete like that. If they're constantly, getting rid of people aren't going to get my messages. They're not going to get them. They're not going to get them. It's not the numbers I care about. It's the quality of the people I care about. But if good people are getting kicked off my channel, then they're missing things. So I don't want nobody missing nothing. It might even just be better, when I really do believe that it's probably the best thing to do is do my last project that God has instilled upon me to do in my spirit, I feel, and do that and, do some Friday things intermittently while I'm working on that too, and then just call it quits. That way there will be a mountain of things that people can come back to. They can take it, share it, save it. I don't even care. I don't care. None of it's copyrighted. I ain't copyright a damn thing. You can all take whatever you want and use it. Just don't take it out of context. Do not take it out of context. If you're going to use it the way it's there. Don't like, do nothing else to it. But it's all there to be used. So, that's the intent behind it all, is to help other people. It's to help people. So, all right, now we get back to that. Because now you have Chi-Coms and Russians sitting there ready to strike Western Europe. There ain't nothing NATO can do about it. Nothing. There's not a damn thing NATO can do about it. They're drastically already outnumbered by Russia. Then you throw China in, Belarus, Serbia, whoever else. you got a nightmare scenario. If you're in Western Europe, you guys are in some jeopardy, man. You guys are in some deep, deep shit right now. I'm just going to be blown about it. You guys are in some deep shit. It's practically as bad as it is for us here in the USA with all the Trojans that are here. We're in deep shit too. We're in deep shit too. They're around us in Canada, Mexico, Cuba, Bahamas, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Panama Canal Zone, you name it. You name it. They're here. They're here. They're ringing us. The externals. The externals are ringing us, and the Trojans are inside. So that's what you have. You could say the same for Europe, Australia, New Zealand. It's the same situation all over the collective West. So anyway, now we go to Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka. So they collapsed. Their government collapsed and they fled. Okay, they fled, meaning they've defaulted on everything. Their currency is utterly worthless. Everything in Sri Lanka has utterly just gone to total complete shit. You know, being blunt again. Um, Here's the problem: Sri Lanka, they owe humongous amounts of money, huge amounts of money for Belt and Road projects. The Lotus Tower being the most notable, and that in and of itself is worth over uh, what was it, 100 million U.S. dollars. Um, the GDP of Sri Lanka before their collapse, well, they could have paid for those projects, you know, over time, you know, paying installments on them. And that's not just Lotus Tower, that's a bunch of other things too. They could have made payments on all these different projects, all right? But obviously now they can't. Now they can't. China has made these deals to where they have the ability to come and collect. They have to collect their collateral. Well, what would collateral be in a situation like that? Well, they would install a friendly pro CCP regime like they've done throughout Africa, like they're doing in right now in Latin America to the Belt and Road signatories like Bolivia and some others that couldn't pay some of their projects. They're going to install a pro CCP regime. Like I said, just watch, just watch. Sri Lanka thinks they're going to get out of it. They think that by turning to the West, to the Western Economic Forum, and I call them the Western Economic Forum because they only control the West. They don't control the whole world. They just control the West. The Western elites only control their bloc. So it's the Western Economic Forum. And then the CCP and them are rivals, obviously. The East and the West are rivals. So the CCP, being like the Chi-Com mobsters that they are, like the triads or something, you know, they're going to come and collect. They're going to come and collect. And Sri Lanka is not all that far from China. It's not like they're going to have like a hard time getting to them. They're going to collect. They're going to collect. They're owed all that money, and Sri Lanka cannot pay it. They cannot pay it. They're collapsed. Their money is worthless. They cannot pay it. Their whole country is in turmoil right now. So they think that turning to the West is going to get them out of having to pay China? Ha, ha. Yeah, right. So you're not going to pay the mob. So then the mob is going to come and like break your kneecaps, throw you in the ocean, see if you can swim. You'll be swimming with the fishes. So they think they're not going to pay China. They think they're going to turn to like the Western Economic Forum for help. Good luck with that. Good luck. No, seriously, y'all. Like I laughed at that. I saw that yesterday. I was like, man, I got to make a post about this. I mean, give it a little bit of time. You're going to see some more turmoil and changes there. You know, that little interim thing that they're trying to set up, it ain't gonna last. It ain't got no longevity. You're going to see the Chinese come in. They're going to install a puppet regime, a pro-CCP puppet regime, and they're going to basically take over Sri Lanka that way, like they've done in Africa and other parts of the world, other parts of the third world through their Belt and Road scheme. So you're going to see it. You're going to see it. It's going to happen. I'm so sure of it. You know, it's like one of those things where people are like, yeah, I've never been so sure of anything in my life. Yeah, well, that's one of those types of things. I've never been so sure of anything. That's going to happen in Sri Lanka. They've already basically like made Serbia and Montenegro acquiesce to their desires. I mean, now you see a buildup of Chinese troops in Serbia. I'm sure they're running the ports in Montenegro too, offloading heavier equipment there for their heavy units. There's probably, who knows? I mean, no telling. There could be like a damn, Chicom armored brigade or division or something in Serbia already by now, after all the plane loads had already flown with their advanced party or light units or air defense units. Now they're going to bring in some heavier things. And, these Western European nations are so weak and so pathetic. It's not like it would be hard for the Chinese to like overrun them with, some, several, heavy units. I mean, I'm sure if they moved like one single combined arms army in there, that might even be enough, that to take on like some like Greece or like Italy, they'd smash those places. They would only need like one or maybe even two combined arms armies to do it, because you're also talking about Russia and Belarus coming in too. So, you got a coalition, it's like a full on coalition. China has way, 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 way more troops in the United States, Trojans and externals ringing us. But, they're going to contribute a little bit to the conquest of Western Europe, because Russia's their ally. They're going to help them, of course. And, they're going to take over Australia. There's humongous, big, gigantic Chicom communities there, very suspect, types of Chicoms. I'm sure they're probably Trojan military units too. I've never been so sure of that either. So, they're setting up right now for World War III. I warn about the things that I see as the most pressing things. I see that as like the real big thing coming up. It's going to be collapses in the West. The West is going to economically collapse. It can't sustain what it's going through right now. I mean, the debts of Western nations, most of them, they really do. They really do exceed, some of their GDP. I was watching Gonzalo Lira last night, and he even said that, and it's true. The United States debt to GDP ratio is almost twice what it is, and I'm not even talking about the unfunded liabilities. Man, if we go there, oh man, that's something that would never. It's impossible to pay. It's impossible to pay. This nation could never pay its the unfunded liabilities and its debt. It's just it's way too much. It's impossible. So this nation will forever be indebted if it wasn't going to be taken over, but it is going to be taken over. But if it wasn't going to be taken over, it would be forever indebted. It would be forever in a state of collapse once it collapsed. I mean, it would have to basically like declare like when a person declares bankruptcy, the United States would just have to declare bankruptcy. It wouldn't be able to do anything, It would be that bad, So, basically, in a nutshell, there's a lot of different moving parts going on. There's a lot of narratives, a lot of spin. You know me, I'm an amateur researcher and analyst. I'm naturally inclined to look at every conceivable angle, leave no stone unturned, look everywhere, question everything. That's just what I do. Some people might look at me as some sort of an asshole for it, but hey, that's what I do. That's my calling, okay? That's my calling. It's my job to do that. I'm not trying to be an asshole to nobody. I mean, like I said, I have friends that read articles and things like, and that's fine. That's fine. All I'm saying is that people got to question everything. Like one of the best people that reads articles is Johnny Don't Speak, in my opinion, because he at least says you got to take everything with a grain of salt that you see, and you do. You really, really, really do, because there's so much BS out there coming out that you have to constantly be on guard for it all. So that's all I've always been trying to do here is get people to think, give people templates for things that are going to happen based on real things, based on real established facts, like the doctrines. Those are real, 100% established facts, like the numbers I use, facts, figures. Those are all real, all established facts. That's just a template that I use to be able to decipher things as they emerge, okay? That's all I'm saying here. That's what I do. I connect dots. I'm a researcher. I'm a nerd. All I do is read. I'm a nerd. I like statistics. I like math. I like reading, okay? There's not very many people like me anymore, I don't think, because The education system we have now is just it's in shambles. It's a mess. I really, really, I worry for the next generation. I mean, it's not like they have a future anyway. I mean, we're going to get invaded. We're going to have a collapse. We're going to have all this other horrible stuff happen. I have a son, and I often lament the fact that he's never really going to have a real future because this place isn't he's never going to see this place like he knew it when he grew up, because things are about to change, and things are about to change for the worst. So I'm glad he's homeschooled. He's drastically ahead of his peers, but for that simple reason. But everything's in shambles right now. It's all in shambles. It's all on the verge of collapse. It's incredible that God continues to give us, days where we still have relative peace, where we still have the ability to wake up in the morning and you don't have to hear a whole bunch of machine gun fire and artillery shells blasting around you and things like that. It's a blessing to be able to wake up like that. Don't take it for granted, because there is going to come a time where you're going to wish for the opportunity to be able to have a peaceful night's sleep, and you'll never get it. And I'm serious about that. In Iraq, you had to be, you always had to be on alert. You never knew what would happen. There were fobs where mortars would constantly land on them. Caldwell wasn't one like that. Caldwell was pretty safe, but when we went out to these combat outposts, there was one called Imam Mansour that we were at. It got mortared. They weren't very big mortars. They were like 40 millimeter mortars, but it still got mortared. And, if you would have walked outside, you could have been cut down by one of those. It was pretty bad. We had one get a direct hit on a MRAP, it cracked the glass on the MRAP, but that MRAP, is such thick bullet resistant glass that it was like, wow, man, these things are built like a brick shithouse. And they are, but it was that's like the type of stuff that occurs in war zones is the type of stuff that everybody will eventually see and have to become accustomed to. And I don't want people to have to see that, but that's part of reality that we're facing. The future is filled with warfare and destruction. It's not going to be like the Jetsons. It's going to be like the Flintstones, like I always say. We're going to go back to ancient type of living, because this place is going to be annihilated and razed to the ground, totally just destroyed. Every human settlement that we've ever known, like cities and towns, they're all going to be wiped off the map little by little. And that's how wars work, especially a humongous war of conquest and occupation like we're facing from China and Russia when they come here. Yeah, they're going to raze this entire place to the ground. And they're going to, whatever they colonize for its resources and farmland, they're going to build back in their own image. They're going to Sinofy this place. By Sinofy, I mean to make it Chinese. They're going to start building Chinese types of structures, and they're going to, street any street signs, and like you saw in my stories, they're going to replace the English street signs with Mandarin and things like that. They're going to Sinofy the whole place when they take over. They're going to colonize it. They're going to make it New China. This will be New China. This isn't going to be America. It'll be New China. So and the Arctic areas will be New Russia, or Novoya Russia. So that's what's coming here. Anybody have anything they want to say? Let me go see who's all even here. I haven't even looked at the chat at all yet. I've just been yapping. I haven't even looked at the chat yet. Who's all here? Hey, Blue Eyes. Yeah, I try to lighten it up with some humor, but it's pretty bleak what we face. It's really bleak. It's a very, very, very bleak future we face, but I try to lighten it up with some humor, where I can. Yeah, call for an uprising's a good dude on some issues. I just don't agree with him when it comes to what he thinks about the elites. There's two different elites. The whole world ain't controlled by the Western elites. That's absurd. But everything else, like the social issues he talks about and the deciphering he does of movies and things like that, I'm all with that. Like I've said, you're never gonna ever agree 100% with anybody you listen to, but there's reasons why I don't agree with his views on the elites. They're different types of elites. They're not all unified front. They might have occasional overarching goals that they might collaborate on, but that's all over with. They're always they all lust for power and control, so they're always trying to get the better of each other, stab each other in the backs, because sin is what drives people to do that type of shit. So I don't agree with that he's talking about, but they're all in it for themselves, really. Yeah, Priscilla, good to see you. Good to see you, Ann, and Angie. Good to see you, Angie. Angie, I'd make you a mod, but I'm having problems with setting and things like that. I can't set mods right now for some reason. It's not working. I don't know what's going on, but it's giving me issues with that. It's been giving me a lot of different issues. So, people, I ask that you all please be patient with me. As I try to sort through some of the things that are going on with this. Hey, Blue Eyes, and who else? Who did I miss? Doopsie Daisy. Yeah, we are. I've had it too, Doopsie Daisy. I've had dreams where I was fighting foreign troops, fighting them in the woods on our soil. I took out like 40 of them before they got me. That felt like a biblical type of thing, like how Shammah was able to defeat, 600 Philistine aggressors before, and he did take them all down, but me, they got me. I got through 40 of them in that dream before they got me. But, that's pretty decent. One man against 40, Hey, I wasn't complaining. Let's see. He first loved me. Hey, what's going on? And I seen you. Who else is here? Romero, Robert, and Angie. Well, if Jennifer, if you're here, I love you. I hope you're having a good day, a better day. I didn't see you yet, so. But if you're here, I wish you well, my dear. So I hope you have a better day. But yeah, that's basically all I had to say. Just wanted to do a quick live. Just all these different crazy narratives and all this junk coming out. You just have to be really leery about all of it. You got to watch everything. You got to question everything, because remember, there's no Smith Munt. Everything's a giant psyop anymore. So you just got to be really careful with all the different stuff that's going on that comes out. Really, really, really learn to use analytical abilities and skills, and learn to compare notes with different other things. Like use raw data as a template that you can either refute or either, I guess in some cases you can accept some things if the data corroborates it, but if it doesn't, you can punt kick some of these narratives. You can call them out for what they are. But yeah, I wish you all the best. Curious Mind, good to see you. Well, all right, I guess that's everybody. Y'all be blessed.